oppressed. We are exploited. We are downtrodden. We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights. So the only way we're going to get some of this oppression and exploitation away from us or aside from us is come together against the common enemy. Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of the skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other. No, before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate? You should ask yourself, who taught you to hate being what God gave you? And I, for one, as a Muslim, believe that the white man is intelligent enough. If he were made to realize how black people really feel and how fed up we are without that old compromise and sweet talk. Stop sweet talking it. Tell him how you feel. Tell him what kind of hell you've been catching, and let him know that if he's not ready to clean his house up, if he's not ready to clean his house up, he shouldn't have a house. It should catch on fire and burn down.
We always say in the Black Panther Party that they can do anything they want to us. We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave, you can remember I said with the last words on my lips, that I am a revolutionary.
These are the voices of New Africa. These are the voices of New Africa. These are the voices of New Africa. Free in the land, and we ain't asking y'all. Next episode of the Voices of New Africa, the show where we educate the uneducated and re-educate the miseducated. I'm your host, Brother Prophecy, but I ain't by myself. I got my comrades with me. I got my Grandmaster Teacher, the Elder Fadali, and none other than Kakayi. Well, how everybody doing? How y'all doing, brothers?
Free the land, free the land.
Free the land. I'm doing well. Under the conditions of which we as a people have been doing well, given the conditions that we have been placed in this country. But we're going to still educate the uneducated and re-educate the miseducated, because it's a necessity for us as a people to come together to understand that we will have a victory that will lead to our liberation as a people.
No doubt, definitely. We had a good, lively discussion earlier in the broadcast. We was talking about a lot of different things. We were talking about, we kind of went over the story about the daughter of Malcolm X. Y'all probably should know, but you might not. She's along with Ben Crump is suing the United States government, well, not just the United States government, but the FBI, the CIA, the New York Police Department, over the death of Malcolm. There's a lot of information that has come out. We kind of already knew for years, but now it's been confirmed, because you can't sue the government based on a gut feeling on Gus. What you know in your heart, you got to have concrete evidence. Well, the concrete evidence has surfaced. It's out now. They're pursuing this lawsuit, suing for $100 million. Some of that information that has come out, of course, not too long ago, there were two individuals who were in prison for the assassination of our brother Malcolm. They were completely exonerated, and it was actually a documentary that was called Who Killed Malcolm X that showed declassified documents that the FBI knew all along that these individuals who were locked up did not kill brother Malcolm. In fact, they knew exactly who the individuals who actually killed brother Malcolm was. So It's been a lot of information coming out about this particular story. Y'all, you want to jump in or something? Because I know you was talking a lot about that. About I think about a year ago, informant, ex NYPD police officer who was a black brother who infiltrated Malcolm X's security team, actually went on record, and I think it was a book published, because he spilled the beans and showed how that the FBI and CIA orchestrated the death of Brother Malcolm and had him actually set up key members of his security detail to get arrested in a plot to blow up the Statue of Liberty, which would give them the rights to arrest these individuals so they could make it clear so the assassins, the real assassins of Brother Malcolm, could just come in and get in undetected without, being frisked, and they can, do what they did. So it's a lot of information out. And basically, we label the show as, our people are still being under attack. We talk about these things because, as Grandmaster Teachers talked about earlier, how these things happen, but we don't know the full details to 30, 40 years afterward. They don't release what's going on until 30, 40 years afterwards, where the individuals who perpetrated these crimes, these murders, can no longer really be held accountable for, because many of them are dead. And these anger and frustration about what had happened, so many years ago has kind of died down. So now it's not the same threat of open rebellion from the people when we find out that the government played a part in the murder and assassination of our great freedom fighters. But we also talked about this. These type of things are still going on today. There was just recently a case, and I think it was Denver, Colorado, with the local Black Lives Matter group up there, where they had been infiltrated by an individual who was trying to get key members of this organization to commit crime so they could be arrested also. And actually, to some degree, they were successful in getting at least a key member investigated. So these type of tactics are still going on today. But I'm gonna open it up to you, Grandmaster Teacher, Kakai, whoever want to talk about. I want to say what's up to Susan Rogers. I see you. Good morning. How you doing? Free land to you. And Melly Queen, how you doing? Appreciate you doing what you do. So anybody, open up, and comment on whatever we want to.
Yeah, we don't have to go to Denver. We can go right here in Memphis. When they had a demonstration on one of the police violence cases a couple of years ago, and the Memphis police decided they were going to follow the people that were in the organization, the Black Lives Matter organization, and basically, did everything they could to harass a couple of individuals, I think, that were, involved when they shut the bridge down. We don't have to go far because, the local police agencies are parts of the FBI operation on trying to keep people from becoming leaders or organizations from becoming effective. And we got to understand that, and that so even now, some of those individuals who are still operating to organize, even on the Tyree Nichols case, are people who are on the list. Some of us, and including me, I know myself, I have been on the list for a long time, from the FBI. And locally, we had a situation here where one of the mayors, Mayor Chandler, was ordered to turn over the information on a list of people that were like police agents on organizations in the 70s and 80s. And he resigned, before he resigned, he destroyed the list, but we sure they probably still got a, list hidden somewhere, on individuals who, have been active and continue to be active in movement activity. And this is where we have to really get to understand and that we do have people who are placed in positions so that they can, so that they can inform on individuals who are involved. This time they're not assassinating people; they're assassinating the character of people, you know, by getting them arrested or arrested on some kind of different charges or things. And and they want to eliminate any possibility of anybody becoming a leader, of any kind of organization that would be effective toward the people. And one of the ways that they do that is they get people who themselves says they're in a leadership position or in the know about our community to say negative things about our people. In other words, and go all the way back to, when prior to the King assassination, claiming that people were, like co-conspirators, to the FBI killing King, But we know that the FBI didn't have to have a co-conspirator. Memphis police was responsible for the setup of King, and there's individuals that have been identified, that were part of the CIA and part of the FBI, who basically was around and down giving King mouth-to-mouth resuscitation and all those kind of things, and they were like, in place when King was assassinated. So even though we might, we might talk about the leaders that were so-called disaffected locally, that didn't want King to come here, we can't call them co-conspirators. King came here to support the sanitation workers, who had been organized, by their union, and they were striking against, against low wages, and King came here for that purpose, to be involved, and there were people who were so-called leaders, like Reverend Kyle and Reverend Lawson, who basically asked King to come, to Memphis. So King didn't come to Memphis by himself. He came as a result because he was involved in organizing the people for the Poor People's March. And King came here, because that would be a test in terms of what, in terms of dealing with nonviolent activities and all that. But we do know the conspiracy that, the FBI and Memphis police got people to get up and to break windows in the stores and at the back of the march. And the police, it really was a police riot, because the police, once these windows were broken, and then they had some people that were saying Black Power and try to, blame the youth for breaking up the march. But the police went immediately to the front and started beating up, everybody that was in the march, and they had to rush King out of the march so he wouldn't be harmed. But they were the police were tear gassing everybody and ran people down to Claiborne Temple, church, and outside of Claiborne Temple, they were tear gassing, black students that came out of Memphis State and different places that were joining the march. So these are the kind of things that we have to deal with, the miseducated in terms of, what happened, what actually happened. But the people of Memphis would have been, organized by that march, would have been, and the sanitation workers who were the cause of the march would have been successful. And then a lot of people inside the King organization were misled to thinking that the Black Power advocates were the ones that broke up the march, and so they had some angst about youth in Memphis. That youth in Memphis, caused the death of King, and they had some youth in Memphis who were like invaders, who were in an invader organization and leadership, feeling guilty, like they did, like they caused the death of King. And for many years, SCLC would, few years wouldn't come to Memphis because they felt that Memphis caused the death of King. And so we got to begin to understand that this is an opportunity that had been set up. The king had life had been, had been uh, uh, threatened many times before, and this was the opportunity. And within that, we got to, understand that this is the government and the Memphis government under Mayor Lowe were very vicious in terms of how they viewed the sanitation worker strike and how they viewed the leadership of they had supported the sanitation workers. So a lot of them people, even some couple of city councilmen that was in the march, got sprayed by by the gas, tear gas. So I wanted to say that to say we don't blame the people. You can't blame the people. The people are not responsible, for the death of their leader. If anything, we have to understand it's an organization that exists and we're learning in this day and age that we have to be cognizant of the fact that people can be killed as a result of speaking out, for justice for our people and all these things. And so what we have to do is make sure that we understand that we shouldn't really have any more single leaders, and we have to have collectivity of leaders. So when a leader is killed, it will not destroy the movement or destroy the organization. And this is what we should learn from the assassination of Malcolm, the assassination of King, and the assassination of Fred Hampton, because the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party was dead after the killing of two leaders, Mark Clark and Fred Hampton. And these are the kind of things, and so when they did investigations and they had all the things about who killed who and what killed who, then they said the government began to say we're no longer be assassinating leaders anymore. We're going to keep them from becoming leaders. And this is where we are today, because every instance that we talk about, organization coming up is either going to be they're going to be put in organizations to take it over or to discredit people who are in the leadership of organizations. And so this is what we have to educate ourselves about in this day and age.
That's actually a very, very good point. Very good points, especially when you're talking about having collective leadership. And I want to, acknowledge some people out there. I see Madam President Salma Ott, and matter of fact, she co-signed for you. She said, yes, collective leadership, definitely, no doubt. Melly Queen still doing her thing. Vice President Madam Mama Ayo Deli, free the land to you. Shabu King, I don't know if I've seen you on the broadcast before, but if not, welcome to the broadcast, welcome to the family. She said, free the land to you. I will definitely. And anybody out there, if you haven't checked in yet, go on, check in, let us know. Let us know who you are so we can converse with you. But yeah, you said collective leadership. We can't just have this single leadership that is the voice of all of Black community. First of all, that's not an intelligent way to go about the job of the liberation of our people, just to have this one, and I don't really, care for when you have people want to prop their particular leadership and almost create this Messiah type concept, because I think, we do that a little too much, and it's detrimental because that's make it easy. You give this one individual, then your whole leadership and your whole organization just starts to collapse. But when you set up your organization and you create your leaders, then you got to set it up to the point where you got at least 5 people down the line who can do the same job as your leader. So it's when one is taken out or arrested or whatever, however they choose to deal with them, then the next one just steps up and takes their place, and we keep on moving and keep on going, and don't miss a beat. That's how we have to organize. We have to do that collective leadership. We have to do everything collectively within our community. We can't do things as individuals, because as individuals, it's not going to bring about our collective liberation. Even in America today, you see individuals who have been successful. You know, and they like to prop up individuals to say, oh, everything is good, we're good. Because look at Oprah, look how much money Oprah has, look how much money Jay-Z has, and all of these individuals. But you can go back to the period of enslavement, you can go back to the plantation, and you still find individuals who were black who were able, despite all the odds, to make out a decent life for themselves, even within the slave period on the plantation. I mean, there was actually a story or an example of an individual who was able to gain his freedom and purchase land and actually own other slaves, or African individuals who own other slaves. That's an example, a real example, but we don't point to them and say slavery wasn't bad. We don't point to that individual and say, oh, slavery is all right. We were good under slavery. No, you don't, because we don't point to, we don't utilize individuals to be the criteria to judge how the whole is doing. We have to look at the whole. We have to look at the collective, you know, and collectively we need to do something different. Collectively, we need to put our efforts and our talents together on building something that we own and we control, without them all in our business telling us what to do, without them having the authority over us, and things of that matter. So, you know, I appreciate you for your for those insights, you know. So, but yeah, you definitely right. You want to jump in anywhere, comrade?
Yes. You know, as I sit here and we make history, it's understandable that when we get the word out to the people, one of our primary goals is to make sure that it's clear to our people how to think independently, how to think about these scenarios, these situations from a new African perspective. And you guys have touched on a lot of different situations that we're dealing with as a people. And for me to be an asset as I contribute to this show today, I want to make sure that I focus on the aspect of allowing people to freely think in terms of a new African perspective. So as a new African people, let us look back at everything that's been said pertaining to the daughters of Malcolm X. And the reason I say that is because it brings up some key points that allows us to grab a hold to some concrete evidence to make concrete analysis of how our perspective should be when it pertains to the U.S. government. Number one, if on a fundamental level, if you're around a lot of people that, and I'm making this simple because I want to make sure that I can make this parallel clear as I bring it to the U.S. government. If you're around a lot of people that are different from you and they look the same and they are all stabbing you with a knife, your perspective is that these people that you're around that don't look like you, and let's just make it simpler. There are white people that don't look like you and they're stabbing you. You have to look at them as your enemy. You have to understand that if you continue to stay there, they will continue to stab you. You have to understand that these are all white people that are doing it. That's a hypothetical situation. Now let's take the real live situation that we are dealing with as new Africans in this country. We can no longer continue to think that a government that has an agency such as the FBI, such as the CIA, such as the police departments, in whatever jurisdiction you want to talk about, New York, LA, Memphis, Chicago, Detroit, Minneapolis, Minnesota, South Carolina, Atlanta, Georgia, Florida, Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky, St. Louis, Missouri. All of these people are people that claim to have our best interest at heart while they govern our lives. And we all recognize that each one of these agencies have treated us like second-class citizens, have no remorse in killing our people, and yet we continue to try to be a part of these agencies and this government. We have to look at things from a new African perspective and understand that new Africans, black people, whatever you want to call us, are not a part of this system to benefit us. It's only to be exploited, oppressed, and the examples that I gave you, to be slaughtered. And we can no longer want to be a part of any entity, be it the federal government, the state government, the local government, and be wanting to be a part of reforming something that has proven to us century after century that we are only here to be oppressed, slaughtered, killed, and treated as second-class citizens. And I'm here to get the word out. I'm not here right now to tell you what's going on, because I got the Grandmaster Teacher and I got prophecy telling you what's going on. It's up to you to recognize the truth by looking at it from a new African perspective. People, let's start looking at this thing the way it should be looked at, from a new African perspective, understanding what's being done to us and understand that we can no longer allow this to continue to happen.
All right, definitely, no doubt. Everybody out there, y'all listening, man, you do me a favor right now. Hit that like button. Hit that like button. Give us a like. You know what I'm saying? And drop a line so we can converse with you, because this is the Voices of New Africa, and you know the Voices of New Africa is not only Brother Prophecy, Brother Kakayi, and Grandmaster Teacher for Dali. We are all the Voices of New Africa. So this is a conversation. This is how it works. It's an interactive conversation between us and the people. That's how we do at Nava. And just a reminder, you are listening to the Nava New African Broadcast Association, as Melly Queen so eloquently pointed out. Please check out our other shows. Number one, the New African Perspectives on Monday. That's tomorrow, 1 o'clock Central Time on Facebook Live. And then the next day on Tuesday is the Foundation of the Nation at 10 p.m. You got to check out that show. Then on Thursday, we got Conversations Between Comrades. Where we do our thing at 6:30 p.m. Central on Facebook Live. And of course, Friday, we got the Truth and Power Corner with Melly Queen herself. That's a Blog Talk Radio show. It's at 5 p.m. Central Time. And you can check in with that phone number by calling in at 563-999-3738. And free to land, y'all. Gonna look forward to seeing y'all on all our New African broadcasts. But yeah, we've been talking about how Black people are still being under attack. You know what I'm saying? And that's one thing that we have to understand. We have to understand that clearly, because one of the biggest obstacles that we have to man, get off the porno, man. You on your phone? I'm messing with you, comrade. But no, we have to understand clearly that what's going on today, our struggles today, is not something that just sprung up. It's not something that just happened. This is a continuation of a struggle that has been going on for over 500 years. This is the continuation of the enslavement of our people. This is the continuation of the fights and the 100 years of lynchings of our people. This is the continuation of the struggles that Garvey took up. It's a continuation of the struggle of Malcolm, of King, of Fred Hampton, of the 60s. It's all a continuation. People want to act like this is something that just happened, like police brutality is something that just happened. But you look at Malcolm X and you listen to his speeches, and it's as relevant today as it was when he spoke it over 50 years ago. So when we say we are still under attack, I mean, nothing really has ever changed. The reason why it seems to be new, it appears to be new, is because the technology is updated. You know, 60 years ago, 50 years ago, we didn't have cell phones where everybody could just record when our people were getting beat. I remember growing up in the 80s and the 90s, I would always hear stories about a brother, you know, getting beat up, brutalized by the police, and you know, in our condition, not understanding the true nature of the system, we would say, man, you know, police wouldn't just do that. The police wouldn't just do that until one of us experienced it ourselves. So, you know, what's going on with our community, within our community, is nothing new. But at some point in time, we have to make that collective decision to say, okay, what are we going to do about it? You know, we can continue to say, all right, I'm going to beg the white power structure to change, to do right by us, to punish themselves, and implement a system that is going to be just for everybody. You know what I'm saying? But we have to understand we've done that. We've done that for centuries. We've been trying that for centuries. And even though, even you know, even if we do get some degree of success, if they have some degree of responsibility or accountability when they say, okay, the most egregious cases, we're gonna give them a slap on the wrist, we're gonna start punishing some people, that's still not going to change the very the exploitive relationship that we have with this system, because we're not up against a few individuals who don't like you. We're up against an entire system that is designed to exploit us, that has been built off of our exploitation. So, you know, we have to be clear about what we're up against, and we have to be clear about what we have to do. We have to look at things concretely and take it upon ourselves to say, okay, we have to be the solutions to all of our problems. Because if we're not that solution, then nobody else will be. If we don't do the things that's going to help us out, that's going to bring about that collective liberation that we are so desperately desire, the dream of our ancestors, if we don't take it upon ourselves to do these things, then it's not going to happen. You know, the people who benefit from your oppression is not going to relieve you from your oppression. We have to do these things ourselves. And I'm going to turn this over to my grandmaster teacher, for Dolly. I see you out there. He muted. Okay. He's still muted.
No, I'm on now.
He ain't.
Free land.
He ain't on.
When we talk about organizing our people, we got to begin to understand that the only time we had any kind of success.
If you hear him through my mic. My mic's on.
As
it ain't muted on this.
It ain't. Are you sure? Because right there, it got it mic. You know, his mic muted. We got a little. Hold on. Well, speak.
Muted. Now you can hear him.
You can hear him because I'll turn my mic on. Y'all excuse me, we having some technical difficulties. Y'all, you know, overlook us. There we go. There you go.
Okay. We have to begin to understand about this system. The system has always put us in a position where we thought that we were going to be, you know, liberated some kind of way. And it goes all the way back to days of chattel slavery, when black folk got 196,000 black folk participated in the so-called Civil War. And so it's a myth to think that black folks have just sat around on the plantation while white folks were fighting each other in the so-called Civil War. Black people not only put soldiers in from the north, many people left the plantation, and when they first left the plantation, the Union soldiers used to take them back and call them contraband. But it was too many coming out, so ultimately many of those people joined the Union Army, and they were part of that 196,000, you know, soldiers, the black soldiers that fought for their liberation in the Civil War. And unfortunately, some of our, you know, leadership didn't recognize that we needed to be separated, and they thought that all they had to do was, the government had to do, just leave black folks alone, and didn't ask for the reparation, even though the reparation was put out through Declaration 115, and certain plantations were taken over, and black folks were, given 40 acres, and sometimes given 2 mules by the soldiers, that was down there, the Union soldiers. But Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. But even in Abraham Lincoln was alive, he was trying to think of a way of how do we get rid of these black folks, in America. Maybe we can send them to Haiti, but those plans did not materialize. And Andrew Johnson, who was a Southerner from Tennessee, who became the vice president in Lincoln's second term, took over from Lincoln and gave those plantations, and most of those plantations, back to the people who own the plantation, the masters who own the plantation, and also black folks were given the right, black men were given the right to vote in 1865 in the 15th Amendment. And so we were deluded into thinking that we were going to be a part of this so-called democracy that had just eliminated chattel slavery. And so therefore, for a period of time, that's what they call Reconstruction, we found that black folks was in a majority of states like Louisiana, Mississippi, South Carolina, and we had black men elected to office. And the Union soldiers were still in the South, and the Southerners had not repented as Lincoln wanted them to, and they were not allowed to vote. I'm talking about the white Confederates were not allowed to vote, but black men were able to vote, and they voted in schools and all kinds of things, and that were not available in the South prior to black men being elected. But ultimately, they pulled the Republicans, who black folks thought Lincoln was a great emancipator. Eventually pulled the troops out of the South on a compromise of 1877 by Rutherford B. Hayes, because he wanted to be the president, and he was elected to the House of Representatives as president, and he had made an agreement to take the Union soldiers out of the South, and furthermore, the black soldiers were also taken out of the South and sent out to patrol for white settlers to take control over the native land, the so-called Indian land. So therefore, and the black politicians were left, without any protection, and so there were a number of massacres that took place where black politicians were assassinated, and even there were mass slaying in Louisiana and places like that, in which the whole Republican Party was wiped out as a result of the massacre, going to some kind of convention and all that. And they were killed in that convention that they went to. And some people call it picnic. There was a picnic. They went to a picnic, and which meant pick a nigger. So now we have our people with this belief being destroyed because they took them out. They were taken out of office. Black men were taken out of office, and Jim Crow was the law, the slavery law. Du Bois, in his book Black Reconstruction, said black people were back to slavery. It was a chapter called Back to Slavery. That black people were made slaves, not of masters, but slaves of society, under Jim Crow. And so, but even without that, even understanding that, when we got to the 20th century, we had black people to join Marcus Garvey, Africa for the Africans at home and abroad, and 11 million people joined Marcus. So we can't say that our people have not, did not understand that they need to be organized, and furthermore, we had the largest movement, mass movement of people that said we need to leave, we need to liberate Africa, and Africa was for Africans at home and abroad. So they weren't talking about taking people out of America. Because we had one time that a portion of Africans left in 1823 to Liberia. Liberia was created for Africans that didn't want to be in America anymore, and they left and went to Liberia. But Liberia became, a neo-colony of the United States. And you can tell by the name, James Monroe, who was a slave master president, they named the capital city of Liberia Monrovia. So going back to dealing with Garvey, with 11 million people, Garvey was going to take a portion of our people to Liberia so that they could build Liberia up as a free state. Because Liberia and Ethiopia were the only two states that were not conquered. In 1914, by 1914, they had conquered all of Africa except for Ethiopia and Liberia. And so, but what happened was that Firestone Rubber Company was a major company that went into Liberia and was given the land that was supposed to be given to Garvey and the UNIA. And so we got 11 million people throughout the world that followed Marcus Garvey from 1920 to about 1935. Garvey was put in prison for 2 years, and in 1925, I think, he was taken to a ship and deported back to Jamaica, where he was born. And so in that period of time, like I said, this is where you had the Black Wall Street and all the other things. Well, black folk was, Garvey emphasized economics and emphasized that we, have our own businesses and have our own steamships, so that we can trade with one another. Africans in America could trade with everybody, in the Western Hemisphere and in Africa. So Garvey created the Black Star Line. So, and all of Garvey's organization, Negro Factory Corporation, was supported by the poorest of black people, the so-called uneducated. That's why we're talking about educating the uneducated, so we'll know our history. And so, consequently, and Garvey organized the African Legion and organized the Black Star nurses. And, in other words, and we were able to for a number of years get support from our people during this period of time. But at the same time, we had the the rise of the Ku Klux Klan in the 1920s and 1930s, that to countervent what Marcus Garvey was putting forth and destroying our economy in different areas. And one was the new Black Wall Street in Tulsa, where they dropped a bomb. And a lot of people, we don't even know that we were talking about the bomb. It wasn't just dropped on buildings. That was masses of bodies of black people that were buried, in a mass grave in Tulsa, Greenwood in Tulsa, Alabama. Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so consequently, we didn't learn that history till maybe 20 years later, when some of the people, came because they were afraid to tell the story of what we call Black Wall Street. And so I wanted to bring it further to where we are today, that even in the 1950s and the 1960s, where you had, the Civil Rights Movement and SCLC and Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, you had masses of people, and particularly youth, that became a part of movement and organization. And we went from Negro to Black through the Black Power movement, and we went from, in the Black Power movement, we went to Pan-Africanism in the 70s and the 80s. So it had not been long since they eliminated the Black Panther Party and other organizations. And so the mass of people have a good history of supporting movements of people and organizations that were created by them, and they became a part of those, those movements and organizations. And we got to give credit to the mass of people who, became part of a movement, and that's why we're talking about the FBI and the CIA and the different police departments in different areas and the Klan that eliminated the potential for African people to have power. And that's why we say all remedies have been exhausted, because we had a second Reconstruction in which 1965 Black people were given the right to vote again in the South. And particularly, we had Black mayors and all those kinds, but we did not get power. We did not get the power that we had under so-called segregation, and we got integration into the capitalist system, and it made us not be able to have any power that we even had. The little power we had, we lost because integration became disintegration.
Definitely. Integration, disintegration. And really, and a lot of people, don't understand this, but that's a very important point that we have to understand. We have to understand it clearly and concretely. Because lots of you hear us talking about nationhood, nation building, creating institutions, taking control of our own community, ultimately to gain an independent, sovereign Black nation. That's the ultimate goal. And a lot of times people listen to that and it sounds like, man, what in the world are you talking about? A nation, Black people? Well, what we don't understand is that after the Civil War, when Black people, in cases where Black people were left alone to have their own land, to cultivate their own land and to govern themselves, we have thrived. There, people, you talked about, you mentioned Black Wall Street. We understand and we know how successful Black Wall Street was. I mean, it had its own independent banks, independent everything. We were self-sufficient, and you had Black millionaires back there in the early 1900s. So successful that the white people had to come to Black people to get loans for banks, and that's one of the reasons why they were so upset and so much animosity created that they feel they needed to destroy this, Black, independent Black community. But Black Wall Street wasn't the only one. We heard about Rosewood, but Rosewood wasn't the only one. There are several independent Black enclaves that sprung up after the Civil War, where Black people worked with them together, work with themselves, and practice cooperative economics, collective working responsibility, these principles that we talk about all of the time. It was in action at once upon a time in our history, and it works. So this is not something we're just pulling up out of our butts, out of our tails to say, yeah, we want to try this. This is something that has actually worked. We have examples of these things working. And it worked at a time where Black people did not have the type of resources that we have today. So, which brings us back to what we was talking about. What happened in between that time? Something called integration happened, and even Martin Luther King said he feared that he may be integrating us into a burning house. Now, I understand that. I believe that to mean that, anytime you integrate with something that considers you to be less than you, that considers you to be an inferior, in fact, you're integrating with something that has authority over you, and they gain and they maintain that authority based on your exploitation, then you're putting yourself in a disadvantage situation. You're putting yourself in a situation where it's going to be difficult for you to thrive, because you've given up the control and the autonomy over your life, and you've given it to other individuals who don't care about you. They only care for what they can get from you, how they can gain and they can benefit from your exploitation. So integration, what actually happened to us during integration, is an important thing that we have to study and we have to understand. I want to give a big shout out to Queening All Day. How you doing, Queening All Day? That's what I'm talking about. Queen all day, 24 hours, 360 365 days a week, a year. You know what I'm saying? Queen, be a queen. That's one thing we got to know. You ain't no trick. You ain't no slut. You ain't no hoe. You know, the B word, you're queen. So represent that all day, all the time. Thank you. But we talked about something we got going on March 31st through April 2nd. It's called the New African Nation Day. It's going to be held in South Carolina this year. It's always a great event. We get there not only to celebrate, but to organize and build and plan for the upcoming year, so we can continue the work of nation building. And we're going to get into a little bit of that and more right after these words. This is the Voices of New Africa. Free the land.
Nation building. For many of us, the idea of nation building is too difficult, too complicated. It's impossible. But when you think about it, we're already nation builders. In fact, for the past 400 years, we've managed to build the most powerful nation on the planet. Unfortunately, this nation continues to disrespect, exploit, and oppress us. Here's a thought. Maybe we should focus on building our own nation.
Join us March 31st through April 2nd in Charleston, South Carolina, as the Republic of New Africa celebrates 55 years since the signing of our Declaration of Independence. Register on Eventbrite to attend in person and or online by typing in New African Nation Day 55. Also, find out more information on our website, pg-rna.com. Free the land by any means necessary. Free the land, free the land, free the land. They gotta free the land, free the land, free the land, free the land. They gotta free the land.
And that's going to go down March 31st through April 2nd at South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina. So, if you have an opportunity to join us and build with us, that would be great, because we have to do the work of nation building. As you heard on the commercial, a lot of people think nation building is too difficult, it's too hard, but the reality is we are already nation building. If you're in the United States, you're already nation building. The questions that we have to answer concretely for ourselves is, what nation do you want to build? Do you want to build up a nation that continues to exploit us, to continue to brutalize us, to continue to oppress us? Or do you want to build a nation that is actually going to provide a future for your young people, for our young people, for our grandchildren and the future generations? It's really plain simple. It comes down there, it boils down to that. What nation do you want to build? You know what I'm saying? We spend 40 hours a week, 8 hours a day, because we're trying to survive. But at the same time, we spending our time and energy building up a nation that don't give a damn about us, So, I ain't telling you what to do. I'm just giving you an option. And but anyway, we've been talking about how our communities have been still been under attack, and we have a long history of being under attack from ever since the beginning of this, before the beginning of the country, before the United States was the United States. Black people have been under attack. In fact, Black people played a major part in creating the United States. If it had not been for our people and other indigenous people, this country would have never survived. And it definitely would never have become the superpower that it is today, which ultimately brings up the question of reparation. And you mentioned reparation. They offered reparations in the form of Special Field Order 15, which land was taken from the slave owners, and it was given to Black people, Black families. 40 acres, 40,000 acres was actually allotted for Black families. Many of us received this land. Well, some of us received this land, and some of us been developed. And actually, when you look at the example of Tunis Campbell, you see the seeds of Black nationhood actually being started back then, in the 1800s. But European people do what they always do. They renege on their promises, and they took the land back. And you know how the story goes, the same situation. But this conversation about reparation is kind of, is resurfacing. You have individual states who are talking about, well, we might need to study to see how we can give reparation, or if there's something that's actually feasible, or something we need to do, or they need to do. And this conversation is only going to grow. It's going to grow because the cat is out the bag. And first of all, we ain't going to let it get back in the bag. Now the conversation is slowly getting into the mainstream. We're going to blow it up to make sure you are forced to deal with it. Regardless of whether they give reparations or not, they need to deal with this. And this needs to be a public issue, period. So what are y'all thoughts on the whole issue of reparations and, anything that's involving it? I'm going to open it up to anybody.
Well, I hate to digress a little bit, but and with reparations, obviously, when you start dealing with the psychological disadvantages or psychological damages, the material damages, it's really nothing. There's no amount great enough to cover what they owe us. What is more important about reparations is that we determine, based on the needs of our people and the time frame in which we need to continue to receive the reparations, has to come from us. But I want to digress a little bit, because I don't think people really understand the damage of integration. Because when we talk about integration, we talk about disintegration. We talk about the end of us being self-sufficient, because at one point we had been placed in a position where we had to do for self amongst ourselves. The minute we got bamboozled, hoodwinked, and led astray into thinking integration was the solution of our problem, first of all, that solution came from our enemy, not from us. We began to enter into a system to try to do better at what they did to us. So from day one, as we integrated, we assimilated into positions, into aspects of their government, their society, that goals and objectives was to do damage to us. And we proved to them that we could do better at what they were doing to us. And it continues to go on. And what I mean by that, when you look at it from a new African perspective, our people have gone into their government and began to do more damage to our own people, because they're proving that they can do the job better than they can. And we are realizing now that that's the only thing that can happen from us in order for us to get the position that they are giving to us to maintain. That's being a governor going and carrying out the objectives and goals of their government towards us. That's as a manager in a corporation, making sure that you get the amount of labor that you need out of the employee to ascertain the profit margins better than they do by abusing and exploiting our people, who are the bottom feeders, who are the laborers, who are the workers, in any other position in this government that they allow us to take. We always have to be individuals in this system, proving to be better at doing harm to our people than they are in order to get the position. And that's what integration is all about. We can no longer feel proud to be able to be successful in a country that where success means that we have to do better at their job than they are in order for us to get the position. Now, back to reparations, we got to understand that it has to be our solution. We can't allow white people to determine to us the narrative about how we should be compensated. We know for a fact that we need land. So any talk about reparations without incorporating land is no solution of us as new Africans. Any talk about reparations and there's no repairing and rebuilding the psychological damage of our people is no reparations that have come from us. Any decision about reparation that does not include the control of industries that operate worldwide, that continue to have revenue drawn from our blood, sweat, and tears that our forefathers created to develop those corporations. If we can't get the resources, the access to the finances and the profits that are gained from those external corporations, then that's not something that is coming from us as a people. And last but not least, when we talk about reparations, and listen to me, people, we have to understand that anything surrounding reparations that does not include us controlling our own economic system is not reparations that's coming from us as a people.
Excellent point. Excellent point. I think, I'm saying, it's really important, as you were saying, that we don't just allow them to slip us the okie doke. Now, there's a lot of people who believe, man, America never give us reparation. America, I mean, and that might be true. That might be true, but that doesn't change the fact that they owe us. That doesn't change the fact that this is going into the national conversation. And if you understand things from a scientific level, as Malcolm X said, America is a hypocrisy. The democracy in America is a hypocrisy. America pretends to be something that it really isn't. So when the conversation of reparations are put out on the table, then this is a point of exposing America for what it is. So at minimum, we got to push the concept, the conversation of reparation, because with reparations come a lot of other things. Come about the reason that we need our own independence, the reason we need nationhood, the reason we need all of these things. And the more we can push that conversation out to the mainstream and correctly articulate and control the narrative, or at least influence the narrative to a minimum, because all the thing they're going to do in the mainstream when they talk about reparation, they're going to say, well, we cut y'all a check. We give y'all a check, and they're gonna have a dollar value, and they reduce the hundreds and hundreds of years of oppression, the murders, the lynchings, the exploitation, the psychological warfare, the damage, the self-hatred that's been produced within our community. They're gonna reduce that to a dollar value that is not gonna do anything to repair the conditions of our people. It's not going to do. It's not even going to begin to do that, because, like you said, the root word of reparations is repair. And we have to understand that our people have been damaged within this system. Now, unfortunately, a lot of times we look at the damage and the manifestation of the damage that we have suffered, and we focus on that, and we use that as an argument against our own self. Say, well, black on black crime, we need to be focused on black, and all of this type of thing. And we utilize that to further perpetuate the self-hate that we go through within this country. We got to understand, even that conversation right there is a part of the damage that has been done to us from being under this system of oppression and exploitation. Even that. So you're absolutely right. Any conversation about reparation has to include all of the things that you mentioned, and really it can't even just stop there, because You can't just talk about reparations for new African people, for African people in America, because this system of oppression is a global system. It is a global system, and African people all over the globe have been affected by these systems of oppression. So we got to deal with what happened in Africa, what happened in South America, what happened all over the world. Because everywhere you see Black people and European people, you see the same power dynamic. You see European people on the top and African people on the bottom, and African people are being oppressed and exploited, which allows the European people to stay on top. I mean, you can even go look at African people in Israel. People always talk about Israel, which they give the state of Israel over $1 billion a year in monies and resources. Look, just do a YouTube search of how the Israelis, these Jewish people, the so-called chosen people of God, these people treat African people. Look, you see some of the most blatant, hardcore racism, anywhere on the planet, right there in Israel. But yet, the United States government is giving these people over $1 billion in money and resources every year. So, yeah, we got to push this conversation about reparations, and we got to do it strategically, because, it ain't about whether they want to talk about it or not. It's about us controlling the narrative and educating the people on why reparations is necessary, on why all of these things are necessary for our people in order for us to really solve our problems, to gain true liberation and true freedom. Because a lot of times people think that freedom is just synonymous with white people treating us better. As long as white people treat us better, then we good. If white people like us, then we good. That does not change the power dynamic that has been created by this system of oppression and exploitation. We got to change the power dynamic, and the only way we can change the power dynamic is we got to gain some power. The only way we can gain some power is we got to have control. Right now, we are out of control, and when I say out of control, meaning we don't have control of our political system, educational system, economic system, justice system, social systems. All of the systems that govern our very lives are controlled by individuals who don't care about us, who benefit from our exploitation, who benefit from our brutality, who benefit from our oppression. And as long as this exists, as long as this relationship exists, as long as this power dynamic exists, it's going to be damn near impossible for us to solve our problems. So this is what we got to change. These are the problems that we have to identify. And once we identify these problems, which we have to be concrete about solving the problems. And I'm going to turn this over because I got to deal with somebody just really disrespecting my podcast right now. But anyway,
yes. Okay. So when we talk about integration and disintegration, and we got to understand that integration, not only were African people in the United States, forced into integration, we also see the entire African population of the Western Hemisphere that's suffering from disintegration or integration, and reparation. Must be talked about not just for the Africans in chattel slavery, but throughout the Western Hemisphere. And also, we have to look at what integration did to the African continent. It created all these tiny states, 54, African states that are under the capitalist system. They were integrated into the capitalist system. So therefore, all the resources are still going to the so-called mother countries of Britain and France and Portugal and Spain, who conquered African countries and they created all these tiny colonies, and they got a class of people. We can't begin to talk about really what needs to happen until we talk about the class situation, because the people who have become governors, who have become presidents of countries, are also a part of the capitalist system. In other words, they have created a class of people who don't have no reason to want to become independent. They want to stay wealthy within the capitalist system. So therefore, you have several millionaires and billionaires that are controlling, that are in a controlling position. But it's the Europeans, the white supremacists who are controlling all the resources where we live all over the world. And once we began to understand that, so the reparation question comes not to be the question of some organization or just the people in the United States, but we got to, it has to be an international agreement anyway, because anytime there has been any reparation, it has come as a result of an international agreement that forced whatever nation that is oppressing to pay back, to repair, for so we can become repaired as a people. And and this is what they have done with the reparation question in the United States in the 1970s and 1980s. When we had conferences on reparations. They found people, different organizations, all organizations come together. Many of organizations did come together and in reparation conferences. But what happened is that we found individual capitalists, people who would be capitalists, wanted to do reparations to just give money out to all individuals, like they did to the Japanese. And it's criminal what they did to the Japanese, and putting them in concentration camps and taking their land, where Silicon Valley and all those places, making all these billions of dollars, used to be land owned by Japanese people, who were put into concentration camps. They did not return their land back to them, you know what I'm saying, when they took them out of the concentration camp. And we are in basically a concentration camp, called racism, racial supremacy. And in the concentration camp we're in, we got people that want to, like I said, get paid to get individual money, and organizations are, they're creating legislation in counties like Shelby County and all that. And what they're talking about is really whether it's like a welfare program. And we have had a welfare program, and we see that the welfare program has not worked for us. It has sunk us deeper into the system of oppression and exploitation. So when we talk about reparation, we got to understand, like I said in the beginning, 400 million Africans died as a result of the so-called slave trade. And 100 million died going across to the Western Hemisphere. And so when we look at that, that figure and see that Africa became the continent of light, became the dark continent. In other words, they went in, and once they took us from Africa, they went back into Africa and took over Africa. And they're still in control of Africa, even though you have 54 different little presidents. We don't have any control of any. So anytime we talk about economics, the basis of everything that we're talking about is to restore our economy, not to give us something, but to restore our economy, to restore all the things that have been taken from us and that's still been taken from us right now. And so therefore, when we talk about our state, our Republic of New Africa, we ought to be talking about how do we use our resources so that we can aid the other countries in the Western Hemisphere and aid countries in Africa, because even though we're poor people here and we're poor people all over the world, we have developed some technologies and things that from being here in America that we can utilize to help free our people everywhere, because the freedom movement is going to be an overall movement everywhere. And then we can also deal with other people who have been, align ourselves with others who have been oppressed and exploited. And unless you're doing that, you're not talking about no real reparation, because the enemy has to be defeated in order for you to get any kind of reparation in any situation, And we go back and look at any country that had gotten reparations, it has been a result of some country being defeated. Like Germany was defeated in World War II, and the reparation went to create the state of Israel, and it's still, they're still paying the reparations, because Germany was defeated in World War II. And so these are the kind of things that we have to really understand. So there's no reparation going to come as a result of the United States remaining in the position that it's in right now.
And I just a few. In addition to what you're saying, the provisional government.
Hit your mute again, man. I think
in addition to what Grandmaster Teacher's saying, the provisional government of the Republic of New Africa has laid down, has put together a code of Umoja and a Declaration of Independence. One of the main aspects, there are a number of different aspects that we're trying to achieve to accomplish, to reestablish the nation of New Africans. But one is a national territory. And so I want people to understand, if the national territory right now is Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina, as a part of the reparation, this land has to be what's a part of that. Let's put it into perspective. You have 2.4 billion acres of land in the United States of America, and that's including Hawaii and Alaska. In the continental United States, the 48 states, is roughly about 1.9 billion acres of land. When you take away the Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina, you're only talking about 157 million acres of land. And we have to understand that if they were trying to give us 40 acres and a mule, and they had allotted 40,000 acres for us, that was only 40,000 people. 1,000 people. When you think about it, they were already, with trying to give us land, giving us far less than what we deserve. And we're not asking for 12%. Let me calculate that. 157 million acres of land from 2.4 billion acres of land. Is it, let me go to the calculator. 2.4 billion acres. Did I get that right? I can't get billion on here. Oh Lord. It's roughly, if 240, so 240 million acres is 10%. We're asking less than 10%. And we are, from their information, we're at 12% of the population. We're not asking for much. But I want to reiterate what Grandmaster Teacher said. People, we got to shed blood, because they ain't giving us nothing. And nowhere in the history of mankind has anybody gave land to people unless they fought for it. And the only one that was actually can resemble some land given to them was Israel, because they had the help of the European blue-eyed devils to arm them and to allow them to take that land from the Palestinians. But we're not taking land from these people. We confiscate. They owe us this land, and we're going to get it back by any and all means necessary. So be prepared, because these folks ain't going to give us anything.
Want to go just to our people out there on Facebook. I see a lot of people chiming in. Madam Vice President, I see you out there doing your thing. It says, we have never been citizens in this country, yet we are the wealth of this country. That's right. A lot of times when we say, you hear people talk about black people built this country. That ain't even a metaphor. That's something real. We physically built this country, with our labor, which we have never been compensated for and still have not been compensated for today. You have corporations who exist, who are multi-billion-dollar corporations who got their wealth from the work and the labor and the exploitation of our ancestors. And that's just, a small percentage of what we have contributed to this country, what this country has taken from us, and we've never been given anything for it. Repair all that you took from the people of Africa. Definitely, Madam Vice President. Let me see. He said, confidence, Chizoro Okeke. I wish we had organized in Jacksonville, Florida to make the trip. We have so many nationalists here. We need to be financially independent to move to these countries, free the land from Igbo land. Definitely. Conferences, yeah. Free the land from Igbo land. Definitely. Madam President, see you out there. They got to go back to the Caucasus in that case. Talking about the Caucasus Mountains. All right, Madam Vice President, you chiming in big time. See, new Africans now perpetuate hate and violence toward people who look like us. This is self-hatred at its highest expression. And you are so right. And we always have to understand that this is another manifestation of living under a system of white supremacy, exploitation. And it's another, because a lot of people like to use this so-called black on black crime as a political statement to divert attention away from systemic racism and white supremacy, when we understand clearly it's not a counterpoint to racism, white supremacy. It's a manifestation of racism, white supremacy. So yeah, you're right, self-hatred. And it's yet another reason why we have to be repaired and we need reparations. And again, reparations cannot be simply in the form of a couple of dollars. So thank you for that comment. I see, let's say Clazel Williams. I recognize that as Super Moon. Hey, welcome. I'm so happy to see you on the broadcast. It's one of our great elders in the community. He actually went down to the prison with us our first time we went for our Kwanzaa program. So he made a presentation, him and his queen. So thank you. When he said, Ashe, brothers, my brothers, way to put it out there. You damn right, we're going to put it out there and keep on putting it out there. So thank you for your support. What is this? Gene, can you pronounce it? Gene Gazi? What? Can you pronounce that, comrade? You see that? I'm sorry, I keep on.
You're going to put it up?
Yeah, there you go. This with Gene
Gazi. General Gazi.
Oh, General Gazi. Okay, there we go. All right. Yeah. Thank you. Get it in blood. Yeah, right. Definitely.
Free the land.
Comrade. He said, this guy's speaking my language. I guess he's talking about you, Kakati.
It's the truth. We talking the truth.
Definitely. Make sure everybody out there, thank y'all for tuning in. Drop us a like, man. And if you haven't checked in so far, so we can acknowledge you and have that back and forth conversation, drop a line to us, let us know, and if it's anybody out there that you know of that would benefit, I would enjoy, I could contribute to this type of conversation, because you don't really get this conversation out too many places anywhere. You know what I'm saying? You get it here at NABA, the New African Broadcast Association. These are the type of things you're talking about, but you ain't gonna get it on NBC, Fox, MSNBC, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Half of the podcasts out there, they're not gonna be coming from this type of perspective. We're coming from a perspective of a people who understand clearly that these individuals in power don't mean us no damn good. So we finna stop trying to beg and hope that they do right by us. We are going to concretely do right by ourselves, because we have the ability. We have the ability to work toward doing something that can bring about real change, real solutions. We're not just talking about things. You know what I'm saying? We talking about doing things, and we are doing things. And this platform is somewhere that we don't just talk about the problem. We actively work with other individuals who are like-minded to bring about concrete solutions that's going to bring about the change that we need, that we deserve. Build that future, build that world for our children to inherit, not just a slave legacy. What we're trying to do right here is ultimately make a better world, make a better reality. And I'm going to yield on that right there.
No.
Hey.
Yes, we have to begin to understand that and to make sure that we're correcting what we are doing and what we are saying, because we have people who want to take advantage and say that they are Pan-Africanists, or to say that they are nationalists, or they say that they are some kind of people who are not organized now. People are not about, and they're about trying to take the reparations, thing to give to a handful of people, and the system that we know will do that. This system would, do the thing, something that we never would have thought they would do. It would do those things because so we got to be careful. We're going to have to get control over certain opportunists that are out here, and begin to educate our people to that opportunism. And so consequently, that's because we see what happened, under integration. We see like but Atlanta, becoming the big black petty bourgeois, economy for just a few people who were civil rights leaders and all that kind of thing. And so we got to begin to let our people know that the enemy within has to be exposed, so that we'll be able to not allow them to take advantage of these situations of weakness of this system. The system is weakening as far as we can't, we can't describe the weakness, but we know that they are under a situation, that they are under stress if they are even talking about reparation on any level or any scale. And so consequently, that's what we have. That's why we have to make sure that we get our nation together, so that our nation will be able to make the demand, the true demand for reparation.
Yeah.
Real quick, since we're talking about reparation, it's something that came out lately. So-called Japanese Americans have aligned themselves with the reparation movement of Black people. There's something they're talking about, the redress campaign, where in San Jose, Oakland, Portland, St. Paul, Chicago, and Brooklyn, there have been Japanese Americans who are demanding for reparations for Black people. And one of the things that they point out is when they had their reparation campaign, one of the biggest advocates and supporters for the reparations for Japanese people were African people here in America, and that they believe that the reparations for Black people is way overdue, and it's something that they are supporting us with this. So, the conversation is going to get out there. That's why, we have to watch these individuals really carefully, because they will try to slide a slick one on you. And like you said, they'll try to give reparations to some individuals who are very reactionary and is going to do nothing but try to feed into this system and make it more efficient in their exploitation of the people, because we do have internal enemies who have aligned themselves with the system, with the American empire, and they, basically they don't want, the independence. They don't want to do for self. They are very comfortable being with the master. Even during a period of enslavement, there were some enslaved people who did not want to leave the plantation. That's a reality that we got to deal with, and we still have those same enslaved individuals today, mentally enslaved people who don't want to leave the comforts in the benefits of being right next to the master, and that's something that we have to deal with concretely. You got to understand that. But we've been on for about an hour and a half, and everybody.
One other thing.
You can say more than one other thing. Hey, put his mic on, comrade. Put his mic on.
So even the Africans who have said that they are no longer Africans, that they are so-called native people, some of them are going to run back to talk about because we're talking about reparations. And our thing is not to try to take anything from the reparations that are owed the people who are indigenous to this, to this land, and so we're not the only ones that have to demand reparation or will demand reparation. But I'm just joking in terms of because we got a few people who want to be native people. They declare themselves as native people, declare themselves as Chickasaws or Cherokees or whatever, and we're gonna see some of, if anything starts rumbling towards reparations, we're going to see those people coming back in front of the line talk about reparations for Africans. And this is what we are talking about, reparations for Africa. Africans themselves have to demand reparations. And so consequently, like these opportunists that are out here, we're gonna warn them that we're not going to allow them to come in to take control over our movements or anything, or pretend to take over our movement and trying to talk about reparations. And it's very, important that we understand, and I understand my brother Kakai, when he made a definition of neo-colonialism, those people who want to be, they're black skinned, but they got a white mask on their faces. And so therefore, when we talk about reparations, we're seriously talking. We understand that it's going to have to be reparations. In any resolvement of any issue that we are dealing with in terms of land, and the land question is the same question that Malcolm talked about. The only way that you're going to get power is through control of land, and we have to have our own land. We have to have our own control over our land.
Yeah, and I just say,
yeah, sure. You got to open your mic up.
Let me just be clear. Like Grandmaster Teacher said, it's not about any other people's reparation. We understand that there's other people that are owed. We understand that. We're being deliberate in focusing on the damage that has been done to us because it's that time. And we have to understand that we have always been in the forefront of anything that's given to any people, any organization, anybody in the United States, because when we start the process, everyone else has benefited. But this time we're going to be concrete. We want to make it clear that reparation has to entail the culmination of things that help us become an independent sovereign nation. So among other things, I'm not tapping on all of it now because we don't have that much time, but among other things, they must recognize that the Gulf border between Louisiana and Florida, the Mississippi River stemming from the Gulf of Mexico to Tennessee, the eastern border, the eastern coast between Florida and the top of South Carolina has to be controlled, owned, and operated by new Africans and new Africans alone. And any organization, company, corporation that is established, headquartered, or exists in our national territory must become nationalized, or else reparations must be taken back, because we're not settling for anything, and it's time for us to stand up as men, and our men
failed when we didn't kill all of the doggone slave owners when they was mistreating our women and children and our elderly when we were slaves as chattel slaves. So it's about time that we as men stand up and be in the forefront of protecting our elderly, our women, and our children by fighting for what we deserve and what they took from us.
All righty. Tell them how you really feel, comrade. What yeah, definitely. So man, it's about time for us to get out of here. We can have this conversation all night long, but I mean, make sure y'all continue this conversation at home, continue with your family, because I mean, it's going to take a collective effort for us to really gain the type of things that we really need. You know, regardless of whether we get reparations from these European people, regardless to whether they have come to a place where, you know what, I think it is, which probably will not happen. You know, the thing is that does not change what we have to do. We have to take control of our own destiny. We have to take responsibility for taking control of our own communities. I mean, ultimately, we want a nation, but we need to start with a community. You got to start where you are. You know what I'm saying? So start with where we are. Let's take control of our own block. Take control of our own neighborhood, our own community. Let's set up our independent grocery stores, set up our independent schools. If we can't start with a whole school, our school districts, we start with homeschooling. If we can't start with a complete grocery store or a supermarket, we start with a co-op. If we can't start with an independent bank, then we start with a collective investment organization that will grow into elements of the banks that can give low interest loans to the community when you grow to that point. So, because things develop from the simple to the complex. So, you know, don't get messed up in the head about, we got to have 5 states tomorrow. That would be great, but we got to start with where we are right now, and we build from the simple to the complex. And what we don't accomplish, we leave the blueprint for our children so they can pick it up. And because we're dealing with a protracted struggle. Is over a long period of time. It's not something we just worried about happening tomorrow or today. Today, we're trying to focus on those things that we can control and build and push the needle a little bit farther and farther so our children can pick it up. And ultimately, we're going to gain our independence. We're going to gain our new African sovereign nation. You know what I'm saying? We just got to put in the work and keep going, and we got to make sure that we guide it and we create it in a way that's actually going to benefit us. Because if we're not intentional about what we're doing, we gain a nation that will be that will mirror the United States of America and will ultimately serve to oppress Black people and exploit Black people just like the United States will do currently. And it'll just be as the brother talked about, neo-colonialism. You know, it just be we're exploiting ourselves, and that's not what we're trying to do. That's not what we're trying to bring about. We're trying to bring about real solutions and really create a better reality for us and our children, and a better reality for the entire world. Because when this system of oppression falls, all of humanity rises. Because this system is anti-human. This system is anti-freedom. This system is anti-life. You know, so we got to get rid of it, y'all. And my name is Brother Prophecy. I'm here with my comrades, Comrade Kukayi and Grandmaster Teacher for Dali. And we're going to see y'all again next week. See y'all tomorrow on the other broadcast. Make sure y'all tune in to all our broadcasts. And collectively together, we will change this thing. We'll make a better world. We'll make a better reality. And we're going to leave y'all with our words of inspiration and our battle cry. And that is, free the land, free the land, free the land. By any and all means necessary. Yes, sir. And see y'all again next week.
Nation building. For many of us, the idea of nation building is too difficult, too complicated. It's impossible. But when you think about it, we're already nation builders. In fact, For the past 400 years, we've managed to build the most powerful nation on the planet. Unfortunately, this nation continues to disrespect, exploit, and oppress us. Here's a thought. Maybe we should focus on building our own nation.
Join us March 31st through April 2nd in Charleston, South Carolina, as the Republic of New Afrika celebrates 55 years since the signing of our Declaration of Independence. Register on Eventbrite to attend in person and or online by typing in New African Nation Day 55. Also, find out more information on our website, pg-rna.com.